Hi, I'm Larry Richardson, your step-by-step chef. In this episode, we're going to make a delicious dish, which is actually really good for work. If you want a great dish for work for lunch, it's great because you can have it hot or cold. I call it hot or cold pasta dish. It has chicken in it, lots of veggies, and a little bit of pasta. So come on, let's cook. Okay, so here are the ingredients for our hot or cold pasta. The first thing we have is 1 pound of chicken, which we're going to dice. And we're going to clean it up, get rid of the fat, any kind of chunky, weird things with bones. Get rid of that. We're going to dice that up. We have a celery stalk, which we're going to slice thin, and we're going to blanch that. We have 3 Campari tomatoes, which we're going to slice and get rid of the pulp. Now, if you can't find Campari tomatoes anywhere, and sometimes you can't, use whatever tomatoes you can get. Just make sure to get rid of the seeds and the pulp in the middle. We're going to use 3 cloves of garlic. If you don't like garlic, leave them out. We're going to use a 1/4 cup of red onion. You're welcome to use sweet onion, yellow onion, white onion, whatever onion you can get your hands on. We're going to use a tablespoon of capers, which adds kind of this salty goodness to this dish, and you can add more if you want. We're going to use a 1/4 cup of sliced zucchini, and we have 3 green onions, 3 scallions. We're going to use half of this jalapeno. Again, if you don't like it hot, don't have it hot. You don't have to add jalapeno at all. We're going to use 8 ounces of rotini. That's a 16-ounce box. We're going to use 8 ounces of it. We're going to add a tablespoon of red pepper flakes. Now, if you don't like it hot, don't add the red pepper flakes. That's totally optional. I have this can of artichoke hearts, and what I'm going to do is cut the leaves off of that and just use the hearts. Again, all of this is optional. If you don't like artichoke hearts, you don't have to use it. I'm going to use 4 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil. I'm going to cut this 1 head of broccoli down into florets, and I'm going to blanch it along with a couple of these other ingredients, and I'll tell you which ones. And I'm going to use about a teaspoon, maybe 2 teaspoons of salt. So come on, let's cook. Okay, now the first thing we're going to do is dice our chicken. But the first thing we're doing is we already have our 8 ounces of pasta, our rotini, in hot water, and it's cooking. I also have another pot boiling that is ready for the vegetables that need to be blanched. Now, not all of the vegetables need to be blanched, and I'll show you which ones do. So let's chop up this chicken. The first thing I'm doing is I'm getting rid of the chewy parts, the fat parts, the parts that probably have some bone in them. And then I'm just chopping it up, just slicing it really fine. You don't want big chunks of chicken in this dish. Now, if you really love your chicken, you can add more than I'm adding so far. This is just 1 pound of boneless, skinless chicken breast, and that works perfectly for me. I just love my veggies. And now I'm just going to cut this into smaller pieces, because this is a dish that you don't want to have to use a knife with. You just want to be able to take your fork at lunchtime or at dinner and eat away. Okay, and there's our chicken. That's all chopped up. I'm going to put it in the refrigerator until we're ready to use it. Okay, next up, I'm going to chop the vegetables that I want to blanch. Now, blanching, it's almost like you're sautéing in a pan, but you're using hot water to do it. It's a very brief trip for the vegetables. It just softens them up slightly so that when you eat them, they're not crunchy. So for this pasta, cold or hot, I want you to be able to eat it cold, and you don't have like these crunchy raw vegetables in it. And I want you to eat it hot, and it tastes like it's cooked just right. So I'm just chopping up. Here's zucchini. that is about a 1/4 cup of chopped zucchini, nice bite-sized pieces. There we go. Throwing this all into one bin. Next up I have my celery stick, and I don't want huge pieces in this either. I want this to be fork size. You don't have to cut it. So I'm just going down. This again is another vegetable that I want to blanch. I don't want it to be so crispy that you're like, I'm eating raw vegetables in this pasta. And here we go. This can just go right in with the zucchini because again, these are the vegetables that are going to be blanched. And here's my jalapeno. I'm only going to use half of this. And if you don't like heat, skip it. You don't have to. So I'm just quartering these slices. So you're just getting these little pieces of jalapeno, which to me adds a little bit of flair to this dish. You can also use crushed red pepper or anything that adds a little bit of heat. And it has to be from the real vegetable world. Don't be squirting Tabasco on this, expecting it to be delicious. But I do love my heat. So there's the spicy option. Now I have my 1/4 cup of red pepper, which I am also going to blanch. Here we go. And again, little pieces. Don't leave them in big slices. Right in there. Look at that color. If you're not already drooling, you gotta watch more closely. And here is our red onion. And with the red onion, I'm just scoring the top. And I did use this in a prior program, so you can see it was a little bit pre-scored, but I'm doing a very rough score on this so that I end up with a 1/4 cup. And I just slice down the face to give us that 1/4 cup. There you go. Nice and bite-sized pieces. And here's our broccoli. Now again, all of these vegetables have been pre-rinsed. Rinse your vegetables. You gotta wash them off. Give them a good washing with some fresh water. And with these, I'm just cutting it down into florets. So about that size. Those are about 1/2 inch size. You don't want a lot of the broccoli stem in this, but what's cool about the broccoli is it adds a sweetness to the dish. And I actually like when it kind of falls apart into the dish because that sweetness gets distributed and it almost tastes like a pesto. Just cut it up into those nice little pieces, because when we blanch them, they're going to become a little bit transparent, and we put them in the actual dish and cook it, it all kind of blends in. And here come the fresh veggies. I don't want to blanch, so I'm going to put them in a separate bowl. The green onion, and then I'm going to slice up the tomato. And the reason I don't blanch these is, you know, I want a little bit of crunch in the pasta, whether it's hot or cold. It just says freshness. And also, whenever you can vary the textures have a lot to do with a successful dish. Whenever you can vary the textures and it makes sense for that specific vegetable, do it. Okay, so there is our 1/4 cup of scallion. And here are our tomatoes. So I'm cutting the part off that has that stemmy thing attached to it. And again, these are the vegetables we're not going to blanch, so we set them aside. And then we just cut them in half, like this. And then just take them over to your sink and rinse the seeds out. Like that. And the reason I get rid of the seeds is it just adds moisture and kind of a weird texture. I don't like to see seeds in my dishes. So the seeds and the pulp are gone, and just cut these like this. Just make them into little strips. And whatever tomatoes you're working with, the same thing. Get rid of the pulp and cut it into these bite-sized strips. It just gives a real freshness to this dish. And there we go. All of our prep work is done, and I'll meet you over at the stove. Okay, we seem to have forgotten one ingredient, which is the artichoke quarters. And honestly, I do not like the leaf part, so I just cut off the leaves, discard those, and keep the hearts. And if you want to do the fresh artichoke root, the mini fresh artichoke root, more power to you. But I find this just adds a little bit of an exotic taste to this dish, so I like these. So again, I'm just cutting off the leaves and keeping the hearts. These are quartered artichokes. And I'm throwing that into another glass bowl. And this seems kind of painstaking, but the reward is there, the reward in taste. It's like this whole explosion of taste when you try this dish. And you can leave out these, you can add in olives or something else you want, or just skip it all together. You don't have to have anything out of a can. It's totally up to you. But honestly, I love it with this little exotic touch of taste. Okay, so here we are in the blanching pit. So the first thing I want to add to blanch is the broccoli that we cut up. And again, blanching is not cooking to the point where these vegetables are limp. And I'm going to add the onion, the jalapeno, the red pepper, the zucchini, and I'm going to blanch that too. It's just kind of a quick boiling to soften them up a little bit. So whether you have this dish hot or cold, you're not crunching and going, hey, that's a salad with pasta. Let's just give them a quick blanch and see where we end up. Now with the blanching, I just want the vegetables to start appearing slightly translucent. That means they're cooked, but they're still crisp. Okay, so what I'm watching for is translucency in the zucchini and the broccoli. That means we're just about there. And it's just when they slightly look translucent, because I don't want them to be limp and soggy. I want them to have some presence, but maybe this is the art of the dish. I just want a little bit of translucency. Okay, so I'm starting to see the zucchini's turning a little bit translucent, and the broccoli also has a little bit of translucency to it. So what I'm going to do is drain off this water, and I'll be back at the stove with you. Okay, so at the stove, I have the oil all heated up on medium heat, and I'm just adding the chicken. Let's cook this chicken through quite nicely. That's in our oil. And while that's cooking, I'm going to crush our garlic right into it. Now, if you don't have a crusher, mince your garlic and add it to the dish. And if you don't like garlic, don't add it at all. But I think this adds an excellent taste to the meat. Just be careful, try not to brown it too much. And I mean the garlic, not the chicken. And while this is happening, I have our 8 ounces of pasta cooking according to the box. So get that rolling, get it done. Because you're going to want to stir that right into this dish. So you can see the chicken is cooking quite quickly because it really is just these little pieces. And you just don't want any pink pieces in your chicken mix. That garlic and the chicken smells delicious. And now I'm adding our capers into the mix. And again, these just add kind of a salty, interesting texture to the dish. Very Mediterranean in aroma. And now here comes our artichokes. There's our little artichoke hearts. And our tomatoes and green onion. Give them a nice heating up. Now let's add our olive oil. Add a little bit of salt. Now let's make sure that chicken is all cooked through, which I'm sure it is by this point. I don't see any pink chicken meat in this. Again, that's one of the reasons why we slice this nice and small, is we don't want to see any uncooked chicken meat in this process. So chop it in half with your spatula. Be honest, make sure that it's cooked through. So now what I'm going to do is take our blanched vegetables and add those. And honestly, that broccoli smells so sweet. It gives it a delicious sweetness. So we're just stirring that into the mix. And here comes our 8 ounces of strained pasta. Get the water out of it, strain it, and stir it in. So this is pre-cooked pasta. It's all ready to eat. And now you got these great vegetables in it. And here comes our special guest star. It's Italian seasonings. Now, if you have access to fresh Italian seasonings, basil, parsley, oregano, add them. Right now, I just have the dried. So I'm adding about a teaspoon, maybe 2 teaspoons of Italian seasonings to this. And that should be perfect. And don't go overboard on the dried seasonings because they are potent and they will take over the meal. And that should do it. We mixed it all in, and take a little taste, see if you want some salt. If you want to add some crushed pepper flakes to make it a little spicy, you're welcome to. But, just take a little taste and see if this is something that you would want either cold at lunch or hot at lunch. I've had it both, and I find it delicious. So congratulations, look at what you just did. You just made this veggie-rich pasta. I mean, you can have this hot or cold. It has protein, it has vegetables, it has starch. This is a complete meal, and it's all in one bowl. It's totally up to you how to have it. All I ask is that you visit stepbystepchef.com for the written recipe for this dish and dozens of others. My name's Larry Richardson. I am your step-by-step chef, and I'll see you in the next episode.